I think we've all been there. That moment when you finish watching a movie and you just sit there thinking, that was a great film, but I never need to see it again. Some movies are just too effective at what they're trying to do. Maybe they're too disturbing, maybe the subject matter is too dark, maybe they're depressing or anxiety-inducing. The point is, one viewing was enough, and those are the movies we're talking about today. I picked 10 for this list, but there are definitely more, so I'm really looking forward to seeing your picks in the comments, but I'm going to start with a pretty recent one. The Father. Florian Zeller's directorial debut that earned Anthony Hopkins a well-deserved second Oscar is about a man living with dementia but refusing to accept his circumstances or the fact that he needs help. The movie is amazing. The editing, the way they use the space, the writing, the acting, it's absolutely brilliant and easily one of the best films of 2020. But I do not do well with movies, books, anything that has to do with mental decline. This is something that's one of my personal biggest fears in life, and when I see it portrayed on screen, it really messes with me. It's simultaneously a horror movie for me, even though it's a drama, to me it feels like a horror movie, and an extremely heart-wrenching situation to observe, especially when the writing and the performances are as incredible as they are here. This is a very real situation for a lot of people, so The Father was simply really hard to watch, and as great as this film is, it felt like a depressing nightmare in all aspects. Now, for something completely different, my second pick is Uncut Gems. Adam Sandler plays a New York jeweler with a gambling addiction who owes a lot of money to some people. As the movie unfolds, we watch him make one risky decision after another while he tries to juggle his personal life, his business, and his determination to score a big win. The Safdie brothers once again deliver their signature style, the tension, the energy, the pacing, plus this film features a career best performance from Adam Sandler. Now, I know this might seem like a surprising choice, but this is one of the most anxiety-inducing movies I have ever seen. It's just nonstop stress and occasional secondhand embarrassment as you're watching this protagonist make one bad decision after another. Every scene feels like it's a step away from becoming a disaster, and the tension keeps escalating. I just don't see myself thinking, you know what would be great right now? An anxiety attack for the next 2 hours and 15 minutes. You know what is a great use of 2 hours of your time though? Learning something new, which is why I am so excited to talk about today's sponsor, Skillshare. This online learning community has thousands of inspiring classes for you to explore, and with new premium classes added every week, you will always have something new to discover. Whether you're looking to finally get started on something you've always wanted to learn, add more creativity to your work, pick up a new hobby, or simply improve your daily life, Skillshare will have the right class for you. Personally, I have been on a mission to improve my video editing and make it more efficient, and thankfully, there are tons of classes for me to explore when it comes to Adobe Premiere, from general tips and tricks to specifics like color grading and motion graphics. This class I'm going through right now, Master Editing and Motion Graphics in Adobe Premiere Pro, is almost 9 hours long, and it is a goldmine of information that's making me excited about trying new things in my future videos. The first 1,000 people to use my link below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So what are you waiting for? Join Skillshare today and let me know what you're excited to start learning about next. And thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. All right, let's go for a few more obvious choices here, starting with Requiem for a Dream. Darren Aronofsky crafted a horrifying look at addiction and substance abuse in this one. It's dark, it's a shock to the system, the downward spiral of the characters is difficult to watch, and it's one of those movies after which you just don't feel like the same person you were before you watched it. It's also pretty much guaranteed to make you check on your parents as soon as the end credits start rolling. Talk about an overly effective film. Listen, I get that people's tastes may vary and that there is a lot of great filmmaking on display here, but if you're someone who casually, willingly rewatches Requiem for a Dream, I am concerned about you. Are you okay? Yeah, there's no way I'm watching this again. No thanks. There are parts of this movie that I wish I could unsee. Next up, I don't think this list could possibly be complete without Grave of the Fireflies, a Japanese animated film that is guaranteed to destroy anyone with a heart. Set at the end of World War II, the story follows a brother and a sister who are simply trying to survive in the aftermath of the Kobe bombing. The great Roger Ebert in his review called it an emotional experience so powerful that it forces a rethinking of animation, and claimed that it belongs on any list of the greatest war films ever made. Both of these statements couldn't be more true, as this film is equal parts beautiful and heartbreaking. This one is my teenage trauma when it comes to movies. Thanks for that, Studio Ghibli. I randomly stumbled upon Grave of the Fireflies on TV in my teens, and that experience is absolutely burned into my memory as one of the most devastating films ever made. I have not been able to rewatch it since then, and while with most films that I watched that long ago, I wouldn't necessarily trust my memory and opinion, this one I remember all too well, and I can confidently say that I don't need to do this to myself again, even though this movie is undoubtedly a masterpiece. Alright, at the risk of turning the rest of this video into me talking about war movies, because movies that portray the horrors and consequences of war are a tough watch to begin with, let alone willingly sitting down for a rewatch, but Son of Saul deserves a mention on this list. The film is set in 1944 in Auschwitz and centers around a prisoner who is forced to dispose of corpses of his own people. The goal he's focused on here, though, is to give a boy he calls his son a proper Jewish burial. As you can imagine, it's an incredibly powerful and haunting film, and the way it's shot really emphasizes the personal nature of the story set against this blur of horrors at a concentration camp. Now, I am aware that when it comes to talking about movies that have to do with the Holocaust, most people would have Schindler's List in this spot. However, I can actually imagine myself rewatching Schindler's List at some point in the future, because there is a glimmer of hope in that film. Son of Saul is just bleak and hopeless, and the more you think about it, the bleaker it gets. It's a very difficult watch, and definitely one of those movies that are hard to even recommend to people, despite it actually being a great film. Next up, I have not one, but two Kubrick movies to talk about, and the only reason I would watch these again is if I were to do a video about his filmography. Even then, these are something that I would want to power through and move on to something else as quickly as possible, even though both of them are considered to be masterpieces. The first one I'm talking about is Full Metal Jacket, a story about US Marines in two parts, the first set at a boot camp and the second in Vietnam. Both parts are brilliant in different ways, both telling a haunting story of how humans become killing machines. It actually always surprised me how much people talk about the humor of the first half, considering how mean-spirited and dehumanizing a lot of it is. But then again, compared to the second half, I guess it could be seen as somewhat entertaining. Listen, I have this habit that backfires on me pretty often, and that is getting into a movie on a perfectly fine weekend morning or afternoon with the attitude of, what the hell, let's do this. And this is exactly how I watched Full Metal Jacket one Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Don't do that. I do not recommend that approach. You'll ruin your whole weekend. The first half of the the film was already intense and messed up, but if you've seen the movie, you know the second half is straight up brutal. For lack of a better word, I was completely shell-shocked by this movie, and a lot about it just feels way too real. The second Kubrick film I want to mention is A Clockwork Orange. Based on a novel under the same name by Anthony Burgess, the film is a disturbing, dystopian story about an absolutely vile young man who enjoys going on crime sprees with his friends and engaging in ultra-violence. However, after being captured, he agrees to an experimental criminal rehabilitation treatment. The movie is undoubtedly iconic and a visual masterpiece with an unforgettable lead performance. It's also full of symbolism and is sure to fuel many discussions. But the main thing I wanted to do after finishing it was take a long shower. There aren't many characters in film that I hate more than Alex from A Clockwork Orange, and that's saying something. As much as I appreciate Kubrick's filmmaking, while I was watching it, I was really looking forward to this movie coming to an end because this has to be one of the most disturbing and unsettling films I have ever seen. Even though by today's standards, what's actually being shown on screen is nowhere near as shocking as it was back in the day, everything about the story just feels absolutely disgusting and rotten to me. Sticking with the theme of violent, sadistic men, my next pick is Funny Games. Both of them actually, because one is a shot-for-shot remake of the other. Funny Games is a home invasion thriller that tells the story of a family on vacation who are held captive and tortured in their own home by two young men. The movie is incredibly smart, effective, and very meta as it explores the role of the viewer when it comes to violence in films. It's a thriller about the nature of thrillers and about those who watch them. It's a movie I would consider a must-watch that you only watch once. No matter which version of Funny Games you decide to watch, there will be a lot of room for discussion and debate afterwards, which is something I really appreciate in movies. But the experience of these films is in no way pleasant, fun, entertaining, or enjoyable. And they're not meant to be enjoyable. They're meant to make you question why you're even interested in watching these random characters get tortured on screen. That, however, does not inspire repeat viewings. One is quite enough to get the point. Next up, we have to talk about 12 Years a Slave, a film that is as brutal and merciless as it is masterfully made. This biographical drama, directed by Steve McQueen, is based on a memoir by Solomon Northup, an African-American who was kidnapped and sold into slavery in the 19th century. The movie follows his struggle to survive, retain his humanity, and regain freedom as it captures the horrifying historical image of Louisiana in the 1800s. As you can imagine, based on the title, it is far from a fun time. Do I even need to explain why this movie isn't rewatchable? There are a lot of scenes in here that are very difficult to watch, especially because these things are not made up. It's not just awful for the sake of making a point, it's awful because it's true, and the filmmakers took special care to represent things with honesty and accuracy. It's a very important film to watch, and all of its critical acclaim and awards are very well deserved, but is it a movie you would want to watch more than once? I don't think so. Finally, let's throw some romance into the mix with one of the worst date movies I can think of. Blue Valentine. This relationship drama follows a married couple jumping back and forth in time, showing us the charming romance of their early days as well as how their marriage falls apart. The contrast of the different stages of their relationship is enough to make you want to be single for the rest of your life, but it's also impossible to take your eyes off the two fantastic lead performances by Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams. I actually did try to watch it for a second time when I was making my top 10 love stories of the 2010s video, and I do consider it to be an amazingly told love story, as sad, as depressing as it is. However, the key word here is try. Once was more than enough, and that second viewing was just like twisting the knife the entire time, so I actually ended up skimming through portions of it. Great movie, great filmmaking, great cinematography, great acting. I'm never watching it again. But what about you? What are some movies that you thought were actually great but never want to see again? Leave them in the comments, check out some of my other videos right here, and I will see you very soon in my next one.